everyone here in the room and online. We are starting the second half of day 2. So it is my pleasure to introduce Benjamin Senecal, Director of Business Architecture at USAA, and Albert Ruiz, Business Architect Senior at USAA. And they are going to speak to us about holistic, value-centric planning using a capability approach. So over to you.
Thank you so much. We have the dubious distinction of going after lunch, but hopefully it was a good one. Sorry we're not there in person. We wanted to come, but we're located here in San Antonio, Texas. And as Ruth said, we are from USAA. USAA is a financial services company that provides insurance and banking to our members. This presentation, since we are located in the bank line of business, we will be talking about the portfolio of investments and capabilities within the bank. As we mentioned, this is an outcome-led business capability-based approach to improving planning. And we've really broke this agenda into 2 parts. First, I'll be covering kind of current problems and challenges in investment planning, why they occur, where architecture should be engaged, and how do we continue to be outcome focused. Albert will be talking about using a business architecture approach, going through different techniques, strategy mapping, impact analysis, value stream mapping, leading to kind of how do we connect the initiatives to the strategy. So it's part of our strategy to execution methodology. But going back to the problem statement, our experience is that too often initiative planning is IT-centric and siloed and does not sufficiently account for business side changes. Couple that with an inability to act in a coordinated fashion across multiple business units towards a common goal and integrated solution. This has led to fragmented and disparate business and technology solutions that are complex and costly to support. So what do we do about it? Or actually, why does it occur? From our perspective, the strategic planning kind of occurs in a process unto itself. It identifies strategic objectives and initiatives, and then that becomes an input into operational planning, although the operational planning process in some cases occurs as a process that is separate from the strategic planning process. But ideally, strategic planning should inform operational planning. That is a more granular set of business unit operational initiatives that is defined. And then multiple of those inputs go into portfolio management to be prioritized with resources allocated to them. It's at that point where architects, represented IATA, information and technical architects, come into the picture to help with solution architects, architecting the solutions. But they can't see the big picture. What this results in is siloed, fragmented, tech-centric planning. So what we want to shift to is where architecture is more engaged in between strategic and operational planning to help identify the future state in terms of capabilities, value streams, and how they need to be implemented to support the end goals. This leads to a more cross-portfolio view of the business, of the organization, as well as identifying both cross-portfolio initiatives and operational initiatives at the business unit level. This gets prioritized through portfolio management with resources allocated to it. And there's a second layer of architecture engagement to refine those investments, those set of initiatives, so that they can be architected at the next level of detail to enable execution. So as a result, I think you get a better understanding how solutions fit into the greater operating model, and you don't miss requirements or you miss those integration issues. Those are solved for by introducing architecture into the strategic planning to execution process. What are some of the key benefits? I think with architecture, defining or answering the question of what needs to be done and what are the impacts, it allows you to have that early identification of risks and impacts, better integrated planning. It establishes that common language of value streams and business capabilities and outcomes so that you can connect the dots across it. And it supports that epic decomposition and alignment across the organization. One way to kind of continue to think through ensuring that you're achieving the goals of the organization is through strategy decomposition. This enables you to identify what strategic success looks like, and through target state characteristics and target state descriptors, where you're providing a better definition of what the end state is. That then allows you to identify the business capabilities that are required to get you there, and to look at business capability maturity gaps from the current state to the future state, allowing you to then do capability roadmaps that defines kind of the order in which maturity gaps should be closed. So bottom line, you get alignment through this approach and traceability. This is one technique that we use within USAA to decompose strategy and enable the planning to identify the actions or course of actions needed to achieve those goals. Albert later on will be identifying another technique, strategy mapping, kind of using a Kaplan-Norton strategy map as another way of doing the same thing. But again, the focus is on outcomes. OKRs, many of you might use objectives and key results. It's kind of an effective goal setting leadership tool for communicating the goals we want to accomplish and the milestones needed to accomplish them. And they help provide focus and alignment on the right priorities. They empower teams to set goals and enable tracking for success, and it really connects the enterprise strategy to the portfolio priorities. So through here, and I provide an example at the bottom of an example of outcome-focused OKR versus an output-focused OKR. And basically, we want to be more outcome-focused. And this example shows the objective of achieving a dominant position within the autonomous delivery market. And as you remember how you set SMART goals or SMART key results, instead of saying increase number of customers, increase serviceable market to 75% within 18 months. Instead of improving customer satisfaction rating, increase net promoter score from 30 to 60. So again, this is how we're training and educating our business stakeholders on defining good objectives and key results. This is done at the strategic level so that we know what they are. And then we are identifying how investments link to those objectives and key results so that we know which initiatives will help achieve those goals. If you think about that second layer, as I talked about, we are a safe shop, scaled agile framework. Initiatives and epics come into the funnel. There is a lean business case that's developed. Epic writing, writing is done. And in the analysis phase is where that second level of architecture engagement is done so that we can really have well-defined strategies, business capabilities, and technical architectures. And that will help to reduce execution risks. It's both our architectures and engineering leads working with the business sponsors to really identify all the components needed to help with the implementation of that solution. Design decisions might be done at this point. It could be, hopefully previously we've already gone through the build versus buy kind of decisions or ally. So we kind of gone through those tech decisions, and this is the second layer, as I talked about in the previous slide. Let me see. Okay, I'm going to hand it over to Albert. Albert, are you ready to go through using a business architecture approach?
I am. Thank you, Ben. Hello, everyone. I was going to say good afternoon, but I guess it's hello to everyone because it could be different time zones. Yeah, as far as this approach is concerned, I just wanted to kind of emphasize again, we're talking about financial service industry. We're also talking about the different templates that we're going to be using, if you will, that we've already used. And I wanted to make sure that everyone was kind of grounded on this particular approach that we use. If you can go to the next slide, Ben. Now, the graphic here kind of shows a roadmap, so to speak, and the roadmap kind of starts with the strategy mapping. But in reality, when it comes to implementation, the customer, the business unit might not necessarily need information, if you will, need a strategy impact analysis, for example. They might want to dive directly into, hey, I've got these objectives, and I want to look at the various stakeholders that are affected, because as many people online here might know, the bank can be a pretty complex organization. So as business architects here at USAA, we help to facilitate sessions that could start with strategy map, but don't necessarily have to. We go as far as like analyzing the impacts to a particular set of objectives. We could be mapping business capabilities and aligning those capabilities to a value stream. We could even be going down as far as looking at the different technologies and applications that could be associated with a potential strategic scenario. So I'm going to kind of, if you can go to the next slide, Ben. So in many cases, the business wants to know like how their strategy or their particular set of objectives are impacting operations, their systems, people, other initiatives. And in some cases, it could even lead to like what other items are being affected. Like here at USAA, we focus a lot on processes and customer journeys. And so like we may also be aligning our value stream map, either value stream or what we call common value streams or value stream scenarios to those processes or to those capabilities. But we also assist the customer in refining their thinking of what truly is impacting their expected outcomes. So it's significant to kind of keep in mind, as Ben had mentioned, if you're trying to go from strategy to execution, you want particular set of outcomes. Our focus many times from a business architecture perspective is, capability-based approach. But many times the customer prefers to look at things like processes and applications, because that's mostly what they relate to. Although we are, working with the business to ensure we have a common language, if you will, of value streams and capabilities. If you could go to the next slide, please. Again, due to time constraints, I'll only cover, like I mentioned, the first 4 stages of our capability, of our strategy to execution roadmap. As this slide shows, and many of you may be familiar with it, it's a Norton Kaplan strategy map. So we basically like this strategy map because from an internal perspective, if you will, we're looking at the business in terms of financial, customer, internal, and learning and growth perspectives. And we take those and we, to a certain extent, decompose those objectives, if you will, and break them into the different perspectives. In real life, we may break them down, to a significant amount, but when it comes down to it, the customer may ask for specific objectives and specific perspectives for those objectives. And that's kind of what we tend to focus on. And many times the customer may only want to look at, just like I mentioned, just one to 3 objectives, depending on the need, depending on the expectation. If you could go to the next slide, Ben. Okay, again, I think this particular slide is important because it helps the business better understand the impacts to the objectives that they're trying to solve, the piece of the strategy that they're trying to solve. Obviously, KPIs are super important, and so we try to put together a good understanding of what the objective is, so that we can properly scope those areas that are impacted. In our particular case, we look at what are the courses of action that are required in order for us to meet those objectives, and in turn, what are those value streams that are impacted, those capabilities that are impacted, those initiatives that are impacted, and if there's specific business units that are impacted. In the case of bank, obviously, we always want to work with folks that deal with the omni-channels, direct customer interactions, the fraud folks, the AML folks, those kinds of folks, to make sure that we're engaging them when we're looking at the potential impacts associated with a particular investment or objective in this case. So again, this is a kind of a crucial stage, I think, in making sure that we look at addressing the proper outcomes that we're looking for. Okay, Ben, if you go to, yes, thank you. So next we kind of take a look at, okay, if we're going to be looking at the impacts that are associated with particular objectives, the first thing we like to look at, although this is not always the case, depending again on the customer request, but we like to explore the value streams to better understand the flow of value and distinct value-driven stages. So we have a set of, we have what we call common value stream library that we use depending on the particular objective. And then we look at the value stream stages that are providing incremental value within those. In addition, we may look at specific value stream scenarios that may apply. And in that particular situation, when we're looking at scenarios, not every one of the common value stream stages are used, but it is helpful because we are specifically looking at the value that's being gained by this strategic initiative or objective. Next slide, please. We then take both the value stream stages, if you will, and our capability map, which basically goes down from a level 1 to a level 4 capability. And we kind of mesh those two concepts, those two libraries together to put together the capabilities that are provided. And it's important because from here we could then determine what capabilities are being changed. So if you could go to the next slide.
Okay, I have one comment to add here is much like TD Bank, our capability map is heavily influenced by buy-in. It's really a combination of both buy-in and the BA Guild's financial services reference model. It's probably 80% buy-in, 20%, Guild kind of reference map.
Yes, and also if you could stay on that slide, Ben, as we continue to evolve, we're constantly testing our library of value streams and value stream scenarios, our capability map, and refining them so that they reflect the entire enterprise. So there isn't kind of an evolution of both the our value stream library and our capability map. And as a result of that evolution and the use of the tool that we use, it really helps to better define and better assist the organization in providing the right kind of value for the right kind of strategy. Next slide. On the upper right-hand side, you kind of see that, from developing or combining the value stream with the capabilities, we can work with the business to determine the capability that's assessed. So if we're providing a certain number of investments, or if we're providing a certain number of objectives that are associated with the strategy, if there is a timeline associated with that strategy or those investments, then we can extrapolate, if you will, how we're going to improve or maintain a particular capability, or add a new capability that may not already be part of our inventory, for example. Additionally, you can see other pictures on here that kind of show an instance, for example, where we actually looked at the various initiatives and the courses of action that we wanted to take, and we kind of, to a certain extent, put a timeline to them, or a rainbow timeline to them, and said, for wave one, we're going to try to accomplish these courses of action, and wave two, those courses of action, and so on. And then we kind of included, to a certain extent, what capabilities are those are being affected by those. The strategy roadmap shown here, again, it's a function of working with the business to determine, what the expectation is to achieving a strategy. Obviously, you include investments. We try to add value streams and or capabilities to better show, what it is that's being improved, or we hope to be improved as part of the strategy roadmap. Again, a lot of these are customer-specific requests. In the future, we hope to integrate ourselves kind of at the front end so that we can better propose different types of strategies based on what we've learned in the past from our different business units or different portfolios within the bank, to determine like what they're trying to achieve, and how to best effectively achieve those. Again, when there's a larger view that's needed, in other words, if you're not just looking at value streams and capabilities and initiatives, what other areas are we looking at improving, and kind of cross-mapping those between those particular domains, if you will, and the different business units that are affected, the different applications that are being effective, the process maps that maybe need to be changed, if you will. So we also have the ability to kind of show the different approaches for achieving those requests by customers. That's pretty much all I have. Again, I could go on further with kind of describing some of the work that we did, but because of time constraints, I figured it'd be best for us to answer questions if people had them.
Right. Excellent. Benjamin, Albert, thank you so much. We have lots of time for questions, so let's take advantage of that. Look, any questions online? I think I see some while we queue up in the room here.
How did you validate your capability map, as architects are not subject matter experts?
We're doing that in an incremental approach. I think we are partnering with the different business areas and not trying to do a broad brush approach. So as we do one business area, we validate with them, and we will get their inputs and make sure that we have a good understanding of the business capabilities. In addition to that, we are doing an assessment of every investment, and as new investments come into the portfolio or being defined and approved as their business cases are being submitted for approval, we are also getting validation by the business sponsors and stakeholders of the business capabilities that are impacted by their investments.
Yeah, so if I could add to that, Ben, and that's a good point to make. There are sometimes we get requests from business units to, help them with some of their problems. And so that's one time where we can quote unquote, validate the capabilities within that business unit. And then of course, when we do the investments, but in addition, the customers will also tell us, oh no, these are not capabilities that should be included. Oh, and by the way, I guess I need to change my scope so that it's defined better. So it's super helpful for us to be working with the business.
And while we don't have a hub and spoke model, because we are business architects within one line of business, the bank. There are a few business architects that are more deeply integrated into the business. And so we will partner closely with them as they are pretty much subject matter experts for the business areas that they support. But that's a great question.
Thanks. Do you as business architects actually get involved in epic creation and refinement? If yes, why do you think that's a good use of your time? The person is asking because they try to engage in business case creation and work with others to apply business architecture capability and value stream accountability in things like epics.
I'd say our tactical services are more focused on helping with concept and business case development. And right or wrong, within USAA, we have kind of a two-tiered level. One is the investment level, which is take the idea and specify the scope, the dependencies, the objectives, and we do engage at that level. Epic decomposition or epic writing is done subsequent to that. And that is more of a role we feel is in what we hear. It's more of a role of a solution architect to engage with the epic development, identifying the solution. And it can be both a solution architect or an engineering lead that does that definition at the epic level, taking the high level design and identifying the detailed specification, almost like helping write the requirements needed for that solution.
Sure. Thank you so much. Very useful presentation. I'm curious if you are using any EA or BA technology tool, just like we learned about Mega Hopex for TD Bank.
Yes, we are. So there is an enterprise architecture team that sits at the enterprise, and they have brought in a tool called RDoc, ARDOQ. And that is the enterprise architecture tool that we are populating. It's our knowledge base. And we, as business architects, of course, and we have a slide to show that, we are populating mostly the domains that are identified in yellow here: product, organization, business capabilities, value streams, and business processes, and of course, their interrelationships. Plus, we are taking the initiative to put in the strategy, goals, and objectives. And then as investments are come in as the green box here, we are showing the impacts of those investments, how they both realize objectives, how they impact products, capabilities, and value streams. RDoc is our knowledge base for capturing all of that. The information architects or data architects are mainly focused on putting in the data architecture pieces shown to the bottom right. And the technical architects are looking at both the application and infrastructure layers, that technology architecture that drives the applications.
Yeah. Hey, Ben and Albert, this is Eric. Good to see you guys.
Hey, Eric, how are you?
Good, good. Hey, there's a lot of interest in talking about the capabilities across the enterprise. I was wondering if you guys could just talk a little bit about what we're doing with P&C and Life and Bank and Ashley, all that work we're doing together.
As USAA has multiple lines of business and staff agencies, so think of it as we have a property and casualty business. We have a life insurance business, and that does annuities as well. And of course, the banking products, credit card, checking, saving, kind of deposit products, loans, consumer loans, mortgage loans, home equity. So we're working with across business architecture community to define an enterprise capability map. And so we are trying to drive and reach consensus on a single enterprise capability map for USAA. So the one we had shown previously, which we intentionally did not try to provide too much detail, is this one back here. And we are making alignments to what we previously had in the bank capability map to make sure that it does support and tie directly to the enterprise capability map. I believe we've identified around 26 or 7 L1 capabilities. They are still in draft. We have been looking at, I did listen into the panel discussion yesterday on the reference models. The reference models have been extremely helpful that the Guild provides, both the common reference model, the financial services reference model, the insurance reference model. We look at multiple reference models to make sure that, to try to get to a consensus. Again, being in the bank, we also leverage buy-in as another input. That's probably why you see risk management down here as a supporting one. But we are looking at ways to maybe incorporate risk management within each of these L1 capabilities to kind of build upon a pattern that is in the reference models that the Guild provides.
Yeah, keep in mind that because we're talking about property and casualty, life and bank, and you're trying to achieve a common language, if you will, when it comes to capability maps, that's where we're still working through it. Just so that everyone knows, it's not as easy as it might seem.
A perfect example is agreement or policy. The insurance company tends to say you have an auto insurance policy or you have a property insurance policy. In the bank, we talk about it the same thing, but in terms of agreement. You have a card holder agreement, you have a demand deposit agreement. Can we align to make sure that we're all talking the same language? Should we just call it agreement, even though an auto insurance policy is what we call it for the member, but internally, it's all capabilities associated to agreement management.
Not to sound too much like a broken record, but I'll just mention that RDoc is one of the other 12 tools in our vendor program, and a couple of them are out here today, so go visit them.
We'll take a couple more questions online, then we'll come back to the room.
Have you cracked the age-old problem of getting the entire enterprise to use business architecture to bridge strategy to execution? If not, what reasons are you getting from some of the areas not adopting? And if you have, what's your secret sauce?
The answer is no. We've been at it for this is our second year maturing into business architecture within the bank. And I ideally would like to show a recursive arrow from architecture back to strategic planning. Those executive insights that you can identify through having well-defined architecture can be an input to strategic planning, as you've seen in some of those other presentations. I think we are slowly moving, and if you look at this slide, we're slowly enabling architecture to be at the table, to be engaged earlier in the process, but we haven't fully cracked the code yet on that. I think given where we are, we're making good inroads. I think we need another year or so, and also working with our portfolio management team on continuous planning so that we shift from an annual investment process to more of a continuous planning, or at least reviewed quarterly process. I think partnering both strategy and portfolio management has been our goal of trying to achieve alignment between the two.
Yeah, we've actually developed a communication plan and a to happen someday plan, if you will, to make sure that we're working not only at the bank level with the strategy folks, but also at the enterprise level with the strategy folks. And I think over time, hopefully shorter time rather than longer time, we'll have that integration. That way we could provide different types of strategy views, if you will, depending on the need.
Are you empowered to break down strategy to investment planning top down, or is it also happening bottom up to assess initiative ideas against strategy? If the latter applies, how do you pick your battles of which initiatives from the funnel to apply proper business change design, assuming you may not have capacity to look at all?
Yeah, that's a good one. Right now, I think it's the top down is very, it's focused more on those cross portfolio initiatives or cross company initiatives. And so some of those are being top down planned. So most of the rest of the initiatives and the vast majority of them are bottoms up. So we still have a ways to go to kind of to be more top-down capability based planning, as I showed, as well as, you know, to try to get to that level. We do have a fixed capacity, and I think the question was alluding to how do you align your capacity to the highest value opportunities. Again, we are really still focused at one of those that have kind of a dependency across multiple business units and looking at it from the integration standpoint of an investment required to support multiple business units. That's how we're prioritizing some of our top-down focus. But later, I'd like it to be based on the criticality of certain capabilities to achieve outcomes, and so that we can prioritize based on the needs of the business.
Hi, Ben, Albert. Thank you for the presentation. It was really insightful. I'm curious to know about how many value streams do you have in your library? My company is doing a similar exercise right now, and there's a lot of great debate on how many we should have, just making sure we get to the right level of detail. So I'm just curious how many you guys have in your library and how you came to an agreement.
Albert, do you want to take that one?
Yeah, let me take that one. I think we probably have about 25, maybe 30 common value streams. But honestly, the majority of the common value streams that we see are probably 10. So even though we may have 30, I mean, I think we typically use, for common value streams, we use about 10 of them. And then we place them, we superimpose them into like the different investments or the different objectives. And though they won't necessarily always fit nicely, we use those common value streams to kind of help do some capability analysis. We have started looking at, I'll call them value stream scenarios. Value stream scenarios are more product and service oriented. And so I'm guessing at this point that as we start to develop those, we'll probably have maybe 50 of those, because some of them are build the business, if you will, value stream scenarios, and some of them are going to be just run the business type value stream scenarios. Hope that helps.
Thank you.
Yeah, like the guild, out of the reference model, established financial agreement is a common one. It's, we could rename it acquire a product. We could then say there's a multiple that are being done at the same, across different business units. There's acquire a credit card product, acquire deposits product, acquire a consumer loan, acquire a mortgage loan. So I think that's what we're saying is take the common one and say, then in the context of that product and service that we're enabling, apply that common one to the context of that product. It's just a choice we've made. You don't have to do it that way. I agree with somebody's presentation earlier. It's an art, not a science, especially when it comes to value streams.
How do you show explicit value in the business architecture practice when it comes to showing the business that there is value in bringing in your team on investment conversations? How do you get a seat at the table? Were you automatically brought in at the strategy level, or did you have to earn that seat as well?
We're earning it as we go. And I think one of the value that we bring is transparency into the current state, but more to show that target operating model, that target state architecture, and help with driving decisions. If you can support decision making at the strategic and investment level, I think that helps you get the seat at the table. We've been doing it incrementally. We are supporting different major lines of business in there and with the particular areas, and we're forming those relationships with the strategic planning, strategy and planning directors across the business.
I think part of what we do as well is we bring different stakeholders together. And as part of our facilitation, we ensure that there's kind of an open discussion, that everything is good to present on the table. And I think there's a lot of lessons learned from different people that have different perspectives in our sessions. And I think there's a lot gained from the intercommunication between all these complex pieces of the organization.
One thing that resonates well is this impact analysis that we can do to say if a change initiative is occurring, how does it change the ecosystem or the business landscape? So we can identify those impacts, as Albert showed earlier.
You very briefly alluded to the challenge of having customer journeys and value streams. The question asker is saying it's currently something that they're wrestling with. And did you have any other insight about how to work with those two? The meta model also shows no direct link from capability and value stream to goal. So are you only linking to objective and product instead of decomposing strategy and linking to goals? So they're kind of wrapping up two questions.
Well, I could say when it comes to customer journeys, we joke about using the bumblebee diagrams. The bumblebee diagrams kind of show the different paths, if you will, that a particular journey can take. And it's, that's sort of like, it's more art than anything else. But we do the best we can to integrate both the common value streams as well as the scenario value streams, kind of superimposed to that journey map, that bumblebee journey map. And then from there, we try to provide the value that the customer is looking for, depending on the need. So many times the need is focused on just a particular path of that journey. So sometimes it's kind of hard to tell, but again, I think the customer appreciates the linkage that we bring, from other perspectives when it comes to capabilities and value streams.
On the second question, if I heard it right, I think the question was, is there a connection between strategic objectives and value streams? I think we have that with targets, value streams, as well as business capabilities. And then the investments themselves can impact both capabilities and value streams. So unless I misunderstood the question, I think we can show that there is a connection of the value that's being, trying to be achieved through the value stream can be targeted to the objectives, strategic objectives, or vice versa.
And we have about a minute left. One last question in the room here.
Yeah, thanks for the great presentation. I had a question similar to one of the other ones asked. What artifacts were, I guess, most beneficial when you first met with leaders in starting up business architecture? And maybe a spin on that, what were your lessons learned? Were there things that didn't work that you initially tried?
I think, that's why we created this view the strategy to execution roadmap is really, all of these concepts are in the BizBoc. But what we try to show is a way to communicate the value we can bring and the way we can facilitate discussions with the business this has been useful in those conversations. And we also say it's not a prescriptive set. You don't have to do all of the items on here, but there are things, so we can pick and choose and tailor the approach to meet your needs. So this one has been helpful. Of course, an enterprise capability map, or at least a capability map, has been very helpful as well. And we do variations of different strategy maps. Like this is one that we do, and we do the other one. So those are some of the ways that we try to standardize. I think we will move to also governing value streams. We've been a little bit, it's taking us longer to define the value stream inventory and to feel comfortable with it. And now I think there's a goal to